You raise a glass to your lips. The smooth rim touches your mouth. The liquid burns slightly on the way down your throat. Your brain instantly rewards you with a rush of warmth and relaxation. This is a profound chemical response carefully engineered by millions of years of brutal evolutionary history. This simple act feels entirely modern and detached from the wild. You might think you are simply unwinding after a long and tiring day. But is your evening drink actually an ancient survival mechanism built into your bones? The absolute truth is hiding deep inside your liver. Your body possesses a very specific and highly targeted genetic adaptation. Deep within your cellular code lies a mutated enzyme designed specifically to break down ethanol. This is the exact same intoxicating molecule found in wine, beer, and liquor all over the modern world. This specific enzyme did not appear by pure accident or random chance. It was forged in the unforgiving fire of prehistoric survival when the world was vastly different. When did this intricate biological machinery first turn on inside your ancestors? You have to look back roughly 10 million years into the deep past. The Earth was going through massive and highly disruptive climatic shifts. Dense and lush tropical forests across the African continent were slowly breaking apart into scattered, open woodlands. This profound environmental change left a pale and muted landscape in its wake. The world was slowly being stripped down to its most basic and punishing elements. Your early primate ancestors were forced out of the safety of the high canopy and onto the dangerous ground below. The daily competition for limited food was intense and unyielding. Starvation was a constant, heavy weight you carried every single day just trying to stay alive. How did your early ancestors avoid dying of hunger in this rapidly changing and hostile world? They followed the unmistakable scent of sweet decay. Gravity constantly pulled the heaviest, most sugar-rich fruits down to the dark forest floor. The tough skin of these fallen fruits broke open violently upon impact with the earth. Naturally occurring yeasts immediately entered the exposed fruit and began voraciously consuming the available sugars. This microscopic biological process released ethanol directly into the hot, still air of the prehistoric jungle. This distinct and sharp scent became a powerful beacon for life-saving calories. The smell of alcohol quite literally meant the difference between life and death for a starving primate. Did getting slightly drunk actually help your ancient ancestors survive the brutal realities of the wild? Dr. Robert Dudley formulated a highly influential concept called the Drunken Monkey Hypothesis. This groundbreaking theory suggests that the faint smell of alcohol led early hominids straight to the most calorie-dense food sources available in the barren wild. The ethanol itself contained vital and immediate energy required for basic survival. The alcohol also acted as a potent appetite stimulant. This chemical trigger encouraged your ancestors to eat as much of the fermented fruit as physically possible before competing scavengers arrived on the scene. Being naturally drawn to the smell of alcohol was a massive and undeniable evolutionary advantage. But what exactly happened when they ate too much of this fermented bounty? Your ancestors absolutely could not afford to be highly intoxicated in a world full of deadly threats. Passing out on the forest floor meant becoming an immediate and effortless meal for large feline predators prowling the brush. Your underlying biology had to adapt rapidly to process this intoxicating poison quickly and efficiently. Around 10 million years ago, a critical genetic mutation occurred in a specific gene known to science as ADH4. This crucial mutation increased the overall efficiency of ethanol metabolism in your primate ancestors by an astounding 40 times. This internal biological shift allowed them to consume massive amounts of fermented fruit without losing their crucial ability to run from sudden danger. Does your modern body still rely heavily on this ancient genetic code today? Absolutely. Every single time you consume alcohol, your liver uses the exact same enzymatic pathways that kept your primate ancestors from being eaten by saber-toothed cats millions of years ago. Your modern preference for a relaxing drink is merely a distant shadow of an ancient and desperate drive for life-saving calories. The underlying survival mechanism became permanently hardwired into the complex architecture of the human brain. But there is a massive and undeniable difference between desperately eating rotten fruit and intentionally brewing beer. When did your human ancestors actually start making alcohol on purpose? The monumental leap from accidental consumption to intentional brewing took millions of years of human development. Fast forward your perspective to the very end of the last ice age. Massive continental glaciers were finally retreating across the frozen northern hemisphere. Human populations were rapidly expanding into new, uncharted territories across the warming globe. They were carrying complex physical tools and sophisticated social structures that allowed them to manipulate their environments in ways no other animal could even fathom. The traditional hunter-gatherer lifestyle was rapidly reaching its absolute peak of complexity and cultural richness. What specific pressure pushed them to start domesticating wild crops and changing the earth? For many decades, the standard archaeological assumption was relatively simple and straightforward. People eventually settled down in one place to grow grains specifically for baking bread. Bread theoretically provided a stable, reliable, and easily stored food source for rapidly growing human populations. This dietary shift supposedly freed humanity from the endless and exhausting cycle of hunting animals and foraging for wild plants. This specific narrative completely shaped the modern understanding of human civilization and progress. It is still taught as absolute fact in almost every single history classroom on Earth today. But what if this deeply ingrained story is actually completely backwards? Recent archaeological evidence points directly to a much stranger and vastly more complex reality. The absolute oldest known intentional alcoholic beverage was discovered at the Jiahu archaeological site in northern China. Researchers working closely with Dr. Patrick McGovern, a leading and highly respected biomolecular archaeologist, analyzed the dried residue scraped from the inside of 9,000-year-old pottery jars. They definitively found chemical traces of a highly complex fermented beverage made meticulously from rice, honey, and local hawthorn fruit. This specific and intricate recipe required a deep, generational knowledge of chemistry and immense human patience. Why were ancient and practical hunter-gatherers dedicating so much valuable time to making prehistoric wine? Alcohol offered something vital that simple bread simply could not provide. It provided a remarkably powerful and necessary tool for building vital social cohesion. Ancient humans lived primarily in small, isolated bands of fiercely independent and highly cautious individuals. Bringing different, unfamiliar groups together for crucial trade or necessary political alliances was always a highly tense and incredibly dangerous affair. You can easily imagine the heavy, suffocating silence when two completely unknown tribes met on an empty, open plain. A shared intoxicating beverage actively lowered defensive social barriers, significantly reduced biological anxiety, and rapidly fostered mutual trust among armed strangers. Alcohol effectively acted as the psychological lubricant that allowed small human societies to scale up and ease the heavy emotional labor of constant vigilance. Was modern human civilization actually built heavily on a foundation of primitive beer? Consider carefully the monumental and baffling site of Göbekli Tepe located in modern-day Turkey. This massive and highly complex stone temple was built entirely by nomadic hunter-gatherers over 11,000 long years ago. This incredible feat occurred long before the formal invention of agriculture or the establishment of permanent human settlements anywhere on Earth. Dr. Oliver Dietrich and his dedicated archaeological team recently discovered massive, carved limestone vats buried deep at the ancient site. Some of these enormous stone vessels were fully capable of holding up to 40 gallons of dark liquid. Detailed chemical analysis of these vats revealed undeniable traces of oxalate. Oxalate is a highly specific chemical and a clear, universally recognized indicator of the intentional brewing of cereal-based beer. Why would nomadic, roaming hunters stop to brew massive quantities of beer at an isolated stone temple? They were intentionally throwing massive, highly organized communal feasts. Building the incredible structures at Göbekli Tepe required hundreds of independent people to work together in perfect synchronization. They were actively hauling massive, solid stone pillars weighing several tons without the use of wooden wheels or strong draft animals. The only practical way to effectively motivate scattered hunter-gatherer bands to perform such grueling physical and emotional labor was the sacred promise of a grand feast. This massive gathering was heavily fueled by copious and highly intoxicating amounts of ancient alcohol. Beer was quite literally the foundational paycheck for the world's very first prehistoric construction workers. Did this insatiable human thirst for beer eventually trap humanity in a completely new and punishing way of life? This is perhaps the ultimate, devastating twist in your long evolutionary history. Agriculture was almost certainly not a brilliant, forward-thinking invention that permanently liberated your ancestors from starvation. It was much more likely an inescapable trap set directly by their own intense biological cravings. The overwhelming desire for a steady, predictable supply of grain to brew beer forced nomadic groups to permanently settle in one specific place. They had to clear vast tracts of land and spend their days performing back-breaking, repetitive agricultural labor just to secure a harvest. The endless pursuit of alcohol effectively bound your ancestors tightly to the very soil beneath their feet. What were the severe and lasting consequences of this grand, civilization-altering shift? The immediate physical toll on the human body was absolutely devastating and universally recorded in the bones. Skeletons recovered from early, permanent agricultural settlements show massive, undeniable signs of severe joint wear and chronic malnutrition. There was also a massive and very severe drop in overall physical height compared directly to their immediate hunter-gatherer predecessors. Living permanently in dense, tightly packed permanent villages alongside newly domesticated animals introduced horrific new diseases into the human population. The overall lifespan and physical health of the average early farmer plummeted drastically almost overnight. All of this immense physical suffering was endured, at least in large part, to simply ensure the sacred beer vats never went dry. Do you still unconsciously carry the heavy biological weight of this ancient, unspoken bargain today? You live intimately with the complex consequences of this choice every single day of your life. The ancient, hardwired drive to seek out dense calories was once a brilliant and highly effective survival mechanism. It has now been completely hijacked by a modern, industrialized world overflowing with unnatural abundance. Your brain still actively rewards you heavily for consuming liquid ethanol. It completely ignores the obvious fact that you no longer actually need the extra calories or the intense social courage to survive the dangerous wilderness. The underlying biological hardware running your impulses is severely outdated. The environmental context around you has completely and totally changed over the last 10,000 years. Why is it so incredibly hard to permanently break these ancient, deeply ingrained behavioral habits? Human biological evolution moves at an incredibly and painfully slow pace. Your physical body still deeply expects you to be a nomadic, roaming hunter. It thinks you are constantly struggling for daily survival on a hostile and unforgiving savanna. It genuinely believes you are desperately seeking out the faint smell of fermented fruit to stave off an imminent and painful starvation. Your primitive brain simply does not properly understand climate-controlled homes, fully stocked grocery stores, or highly refined and properly distilled modern spirits. The complex, 10-million-year-old biological software is constantly running on entirely modern physical hardware. It is a massive biological mismatch that fundamentally shapes complex human behavior on a massive, global scale. So take a moment and carefully picture the opening scene one more time. You finally take a slow sip from your cold glass. You feel the highly familiar, comforting warmth spread steadily through your entire body. You are fulfilling a 10-million-year-old evolutionary imperative originally designed perfectly to keep your starving primate ancestors alive.